Only that Freedom Caucus, that largely conservative group, has problems with some of these initiatives in the House budget plan that would curtail spending. They argue not cutting spending enough, but the so-called Tuesday group, the moderate Republicans, they say it cuts it too much. To CNS News editor Terry Jeffrey on what any of this could be telegraphing. What do you think, Terry? I mean, could this be the health care thing all over again?
It very well could be politically, Neil, but I think the conservatives were on the right side of the health care. And I think they're on the right side of this. If you look at the budget document that the House Budget Committee put out, they're aiming to balance the budget 10 years from now, when many of these guys won't be in Congress anymore. And by the way, 10 years from now, when they balance the budget, they're only going to do it by $9 billion. They're going to spend more than $5 trillion, and they say they're going to have a $9 billion surplus. And that assumes that they don't spend a single penny on the war on terrorism. It's completely unrealistic, yet at the same time, in their budget, they say that the excessive spending the government is doing is immoral because we're placing this massive burden of debt on future generations, and eventually we're going to have a crisis. They absolutely are correct in the way they describe the fiscal situation the country is facing, but they're not realistic in the proposals they're making to solve it.
And you know, the worst thing, Terry, is, you alienate everyone when you offend everyone here. So whatever initiatives are taken that tick off conservatives and moderates, then you wonder who's left. But they are making a good faith effort to get spending somewhat curtailed, or I should stress the growth in spending, a little over $200 billion over the next 10 years. But the fact of the matter is, to call for a surplus in the 10th year in 2027 of about $9 billion when we're looking in the interim maybe at $600, $700, $800 billion deficits, that's a stretch.
Well, it is. And, like I said, the Republican leadership does understand the fiscal situation facing the country. They understand it's dire. They describe it accurately in their budget. But there is absolutely no way you can bring liberals or moderates along in a gentle political process to achieve the kind of solutions we need to achieve. There has to be a massive fight over this, and we need political leadership in Washington that goes out and tells the American people what the Republicans say in their budget. We are headed toward a fiscal crisis. It's because the federal government is spending too much. It's because our economic growth is too tepid. So we need policies that seriously cut federal spending and at the same time increase growth. And that's going to take a national debate that's going to be intense. And it's not clear that the Republicans want to go out and have that debate. They need to do it.
I almost get a sense that Republicans are afraid of their own shadow. And I know there's always division with the party. The numbers are such, as I was stressing at the beginning of the show, they don't have the enormous wiggle room Democrats had, for example, after the 2008 election when they had almost 60 senators. And they had at least 20 more, congressmen than Republicans have in their majority. So they could afford to lose people, and they did. But, it's interesting that there are moderates who are against almost any cut in programs, even the growth in those programs. And that could, water down whatever tax cuts, for example, we see. What do you think of that?
I agree, and I think it's because those moderates fear the liberal press more than they fear their own voters. Even those moderate Republicans were not sent to Washington, D.C. to grow the government, to excessively tax the people, to hold down economic growth. That's not why they were sent to D.C. But they fear that the way this will be defined will be by the Washington Post and CNN. And they think then they'll go back and have a debate that they can't win. That's why Republican leaders and conservative leaders need to come forward, force a debate. Let's have a national fight over this. Let's really clarify what's at stake. If you do that, you win. But it's up to the Republican leaders to do that. If they lead and they fight, they can bring the moderates over. But if they're passive about this and they're unwilling to take on the liberal media, they will lose. One thing President Trump has done extraordinarily well is go after the liberal media. Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell should do it too.
Yeah, they will never like you, so don't ever try to get them to. All right. Very, very good seeing you again. Terry Jeffrey, CNS News editor.